Get your wrinkled, dirty hands off that paint. Julian shouted, his voice echoing through the marble hall, making wealthy customers stare with disdain. One scratch on this car is worth more than your entire miserable life, old lady. Martha looked at him with tearful eyes, her voice trembling. I just wanted to buy a birthday gift for my grandson. He's always dreamed of owning this car. Julian let out a cruel, mocking laugh. A gift? With the pocket change in that cheap rag bag of yours? Security. Drag this beggar out of here right now. She's making this place smell like poverty. The insult was razor-sharp, leaving Martha bowing her head in shame as people laughed at her. But Julian had no idea that in just a few minutes, his arrogance would destroy his world forever. Welcome back to Scarred but Pure. Today, we witness a story of pride leading to the bitterest regret. Never judge a person by their clothes, because you never know who they are protecting. If you believe every elderly person deserves respect, hit that subscribe button now and turn on the notification bell. Before we continue, I want to know, what is the cruelest thing you've ever heard from an arrogant person? Write it in the comments. I'll be reading and hearting your stories. Manhattan was a place where appearance was everything, and Julian was a man who worshipped luxury. To him, Martha was nothing more than an eyesore ruining the aesthetic of Empire Motors. Listen, old lady, Julian whispered right into Martha's ear, his face flushed with rage. You don't belong here. You belong in a gutter or a free nursing home. If you don't leave in 3 seconds, I'll have the police drag you to jail for attempted theft. Martha squeezed her rag bag, which held an old wooden box. Sir, you don't understand. Today is very important. Enough. Julian snatched Martha's bag and threw it onto the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. Look at this. Knitting yarn? Faded photos? You really are crazy. Just as Julian was about to push Martha out the door, a convoy of luxury black cars pulled up in front of the showroom. A man in a multi-$1,000 suit stepped inside with a stride that shook the room. It was Robert Vance, the tech billionaire who had just purchased the entire dealership chain via a phone call 1 hour ago. Julian's face instantly transformed. His fierce expression turned into a disgusting, groveling smile. Mr. Vance. Such an honor. I was just about to clear this pest out of the way so you could view our collection in comfort. Robert stopped. His eyes were fixed on his mother, Martha, who was kneeling on the floor trying to pick up her dirty knitting yarn. The world seemed to stop spinning for Julian as Robert Vance knelt beside the ragged old woman, brushed the dust off her sweater, and whispered in a broken voice, Mom? What did they do to you here? Julian felt his heart drop into his stomach. The oxygen in his lungs vanished. He had just called the mother of the most powerful man in New York a beggar. The air in the Empire Motors showroom turned ice cold. Julian stood frozen, his hands still half raised as if to point toward the exit. He watched, paralyzed, as the most powerful man in Manhattan's tech sector, Robert Vance, carefully gathered the dirty yarn from the marble floor. Robert didn't care about his custom-tailored suit or the eyes of the billionaire clients watching. His only world was the elderly woman trembling in his arms. Robert. I didn't want to bother you, Martha whispered, her voice cracking as she leaned against her son. I just wanted to get Leo's gift. I saved for so long. Robert looked at the bag Julian had thrown, the small wooden box and the knitting needles. He felt a fire ignite in his chest that no amount of money could extinguish. He stood up slowly, turning to face Julian. Robert didn't scream. He didn't have to. The silence in his eyes was more terrifying than any roar. Mr. Vance, sir, Julian stammered, his face a sickly shade of gray. There must be a misunderstanding. She didn't say who she was. She looked. She was touching the $200,000 SUV, and I was just protecting the inventory. Robert interrupted, his voice like a razor blade. You mean you were protecting your ego? You saw a woman who didn't fit your definition of wealthy, and you decided she wasn't human. You decided she was a pest. Julian tried to back away, but his legs felt like lead. I was only doing my job, sir. I didn't know she was your mother. That is exactly the problem, Julian. Robert stepped closer, his shadow looming over the manager. My mother shouldn't have to be a billionaire's mother to be treated with basic human decency. You didn't fail me, Julian. You failed as a man. Robert turned to Mr. Henderson, the CEO of the dealership group who had just rushed into the room, gasping for breath. Henderson, did the wire transfer go through this morning? Yes, Mr. Vance, Henderson replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. You are officially the sole owner of Empire Motors and all its subsidiaries as of 9 a.m. Robert nodded coldly. Good. Then as my first act as owner, I want Julian stripped of his position. Not just fired, Henderson. I want him blacklisted. I want his name sent to every luxury brand, every dealership, and every high-end firm from here to Los Angeles. I want the world to know that this man treats grandmothers like garbage. No. Please. Julian fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I have a mortgage. I have a reputation. Mr. Vance, I'm sorry. I'll apologize to her. I'll do anything. Robert looked down at the man who had just tried to throw his mother into the street. You had your chance to be a human being, and you traded it for a $3,000 suit. You told my mother she couldn't afford the air in this room? Well, Julian, you can't afford to work in this city anymore. Robert ignored Julian's desperate pleas as security guards, the same guards Julian had called to drag Martha out, now grabbed Julian by the arms. They dragged him across the marble floor he was so proud of, his screams of "I'm sorry" fading as the heavy glass doors shut behind him. Robert turned back to his mother, his expression softening instantly. Mom, which car did you want for Leo? Martha pointed to the matte black SUV Julian had guarded so fiercely. This one, Robert. He's been talking about it since he was 12. But I don't have enough in my box, do I? Robert took the old wooden box from her hands. Inside were hundreds of small bills, neatly folded, money she had saved from selling her hand-knitted sweaters for years. It was the most valuable money Robert had ever seen. Mom, this box is worth more than this entire building, Robert said, kissing her hand. But today, your money stays in the box. Consider this a gift from me to you, for teaching me that the only thing that matters is how we treat people who have nothing. Robert turned to the other staff members who had stood by and watched Julian's cruelty. They were all shaking, fearing for their jobs. Robert signaled to a young intern, a girl who had been the only one to bring Martha a glass of water earlier while Julian was screaming. You, Robert said to the girl. What's your name? Sarah, sir, she whispered. Sarah, you're the new manager of this showroom. I want you to run this place with the same kindness you showed my mother. If I ever hear of a customer being judged by their clothes again, I'll shut this entire place down and turn it into a homeless shelter. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Mr. Vance. Sarah cried, tears of joy in her eyes. Robert led Martha to the SUV. He didn't just buy one, he bought 3, one for Leo, one for Martha's neighbor who always helped her with groceries, and one to be auctioned off for the local senior center. As they drove away in Robert's limousine, Martha looked out the window. She saw Julian sitting on the sidewalk, his expensive tie undone, his head in his hands. He was a man who had everything an hour ago, but because he lacked a heart, he now had nothing. The world is a loud place, Robert, Martha said, holding her son's hand. Yes, Mom, Robert replied. But the quietest souls usually carry the heaviest gold. Julian forgot that. I never will. The sun began to set over the Hudson River, casting a long golden glow over the Vance estate. It was a place of glass, steel, and luxury, a far cry from the small dusty apartment where Martha had raised Robert on nothing but hope and hard work. Tonight was Leo's 18th birthday. The driveway was packed with the most expensive cars in New York, and the house was filled with the city's elite, all eager to celebrate the heir to the Vance fortune. But in the middle of the crowd, Martha felt out of place. She wore the same simple blue dress she had owned for a decade, her hands still calloused from years of knitting. Robert's business associates whispered behind their champagne glasses. "Who is that old woman?" one whispered. "Is she the help? Why is she wearing that at a billionaire's party?" Robert, standing on the balcony, saw the judgmental looks. He felt the same anger he felt at the showroom, but Martha squeezed his hand. "Let them talk, Robert," she whispered. "The loudest voices are often the emptiest." Suddenly, the music stopped. Robert led Leo out to the front of the mansion. The crowd followed, curious. There, draped in a massive red ribbon, stood the matte black SUV. It looked like a beast under the spotlights, powerful, sleek, and dangerous. Leo's eyes went wide. "Dad? Is that for me?" Robert stepped back and pointed to Martha. "Don't thank me, son. This gift didn't come from my bank account. It came from your grandmother. She spent 5 years saving every dollar from her knitting, selling sweaters in the cold, just so you could have your dream car on your 18th birthday." A hush fell over the elite crowd. The women in their diamond necklaces and the men in their designer suits looked at the simple old woman in the blue dress. The old woman they thought was the help had just outshone them all. Leo ran to Martha, hugging her so tight she could barely breathe. "Grandma, you didn't have to. You worked so hard." Martha reached into her bag and pulled out the small wooden box Julian had thrown on the floor earlier. She handed it to Leo. Inside, there were no more bills, only a small hand-knitted key fob and a letter. "Read it, Leo," Martha said softly. Leo opened the letter and read it aloud so the whole crowd could hear. "To my grandson, Leo. People in this city will tell you that you are powerful because of the car you drive or the name you carry. They will tell you that wealth is something you can see in a bank balance. They are wrong. Real power is the ability to walk into a room and see every person as your equal. Real wealth is the kindness you show to the person who can do nothing for you. I bought you this car so you can drive anywhere in the world, but I give you this box so you never forget where you came from. Never look down on someone unless you are reaching down to help them up." As Leo finished reading, several of Robert's billionaire associates lowered their heads. The room, which had been filled with shallow chatter, was now heavy with the weight of Martha's words. Robert stepped forward, looking at the guests who had whispered about his mother. "Today, a man lost his entire career because he thought my mother's clothes defined her value. I hope tonight serves as a reminder to everyone here. In this family, we don't measure success by what we own, but by the lives we touch." The party continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The guests no longer ignored Martha, they stood in line just to shake her hand. They saw a queen where they had previously seen a beggar. Late that night, after the guests had gone, Robert and Martha sat on the porch. Leo was out in the driveway, just sitting in his new car, staring at the wooden box on the dashboard. "Robert," Martha said, looking at the New York skyline. "Did you blacklisted that man, Julian?" "I did, Mom. He'll never work in luxury retail again." Martha sighed. "Send him a check for $5,000. Tell him it's from the beggar he tried to throw out. Tell him to use it to buy his mother a gift. Maybe then he'll understand what he truly lost." Robert looked at his mother in awe. Even after the humiliation, she was still teaching him how to be a billionaire. "You're too good for this world, Mom." "No, Robert," she smiled, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "I'm just a mother who knows that a heart of gold is the only currency that lasts forever." As the lights of Manhattan twinkled in the distance, the story of the beggar in the showroom became a legend. A story of a son who protected his mother, a grandmother who saved her soul, and a manager who learned that the most expensive mistake you can make is forgetting to be human.